Another beautiful morning. Another beautiful morning in the woods. It's about 6:30 in the morning. Nice little creek down below me here. I'm going to try to make my way down to that creek if I can. Once again in the steeper country. I'm pretty much on my last couple of outings before I leave. I'm out of here very shortly, heading north. So how about those gifts from Daniel Mannix? Absolutely beautiful. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, steep. This is steep country, man. I don't know what it is about the steep country, but I do love it. Down in this old creek bed now, there's not much water in this creek. Damn near dried up. We haven't had a lot of rain here of late, so not a lot of water in the creeks. Still gotta watch my footing. It could be slippery in here, who knows. That's the last damn thing I need is to twist an ankle a week before I leave. Anyways, feeling pretty good. Feeling strong, feeling in shape. My cardio's good. I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready to go run around the mountains for a month. Or just under a month, I guess. Anyways, I'm going to get up the creek bed here a bit. And then I might scoot up this side of the hill here, depending on how steep it is. That's all pretty rugged there. It looks like the sun's just coming up over the mountains now, so we should have a little bit more daylight here soon. I would think. Ooh, geez, it's looking steeper. I want to get up here and maybe once I get to the top of the hill there or mountain there, I'll stop, take a break, and get another email read. Maybe another 2 emails read. Because of course, ever since I started sharing a few emails, of course, get more and more. So I will get them read. Okay, I'm going to turn this camera off and try to get up top here, so we'll catch up in a little bit. I figured for my last couple of hikes that I'd really push myself. Yeah. I'm pushing myself all right. Jesus. I'm on all fours going up here. That's how it's gonna be, is it? The problem is, it's holy key raised. Problem is it's rock. There's no dirt. It's basically rock covered with moss, a little bit of vegetation, no dirt. Steep. Anyways, almost at the top. I gotta take a break. That's some steep, rugged shit. Anyways, take a break for a minute, and I'm gonna get a couple of emails read to you. I try to read every comment that I get on every video, and sometimes that's what I do, sort of late at night, early mornings or whatever. Is I'll go through the comments, the odd time during the day I'll go through them or whatever as well. But I try to read them and do my very best to respond to everybody. And a lot of people think, you know, and rightfully so, but a lot of people, not only just that watch here, but you know, that I've heard from other channels and whatnot, people saying that, you know, how could these beings live out here undetected and from society and whatnot, and if you're a real seasoned outdoors person, and you don't have to be a hunter, but just an outdoors person, if you're a very seasoned outdoors person, I think if you ask that person if it would be possible to live out here undetected, so easy. It really, truly is. The wilderness is so vast, you guys. It's so massive, and you get into areas like where I go, a lot of the areas where I go, and they just don't see people. People don't go there, or if they do, it's very, very few people go there. You know, I've always said that if a person really wanted to go out and get lost, I could do it very easily, and nobody would ever find me. So you know, for these beings that were born and raised out here, super easy for them. You know, I don't know if anybody has ever read, there's a book that I read, I actually read it twice, a couple of years apart, because it was one of the most fascinating reads ever for me. And it's called, the book is called Descent into Madness. It's a story of Michael Orris. His nickname was Chesley Free Mike. And Michael Orris was, he came out of the U.S. and he was an educated young man. I believe he had a few years of university education. And I can't remember the exact, I remember most of the details of the book, and I read it 10 years ago. I actually read this book in like 3 days. I couldn't put it down. But Michael Orris came out of the U.S. He was an educated young man. A little bit of bush knowledge, not a lot though. And he escaped into the mountains of northern British Columbia. And I'm not going to ruin the story for anybody, but basically Michael Orris lived in the woods, in the wilderness, and I mean the remote wilderness. Okay, he started up around Atlan, BC, which is very far, right on the Yukon border, northwest, British Columbia, right on the Yukon border. And he roamed between Atlan, BC and Dease Lake, BC, which is where I spend a lot of time. And he lived out there in the wilderness, okay, completely alone by himself. He never had, like, he hunted for food, he foraged. So anyways, this guy lived like many, many, many years, completely isolated in the wilderness. So phenomenal read. I highly recommend it if you like, I don't even know what you want to call it. It's not just a wilderness story. I'm not going to ruin it, but there's a lot more to it. It's pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. So check it out. Descent into Madness. It will, I guarantee you won't be able to put it down. So my point to that is, yes, you can escape into the mountains and you could live undetected if that's what you wish to do. So, all right, time to get into it. Man, I don't even know where to start here. We'll just start with the next email in the line here. So this email is from Charles. Hey Darren, my name is Charles, and you can use my name if you wish. I have nothing to hide or be ashamed of, and I'm too damn old to be worried about what some non-believer might have on their petty minds. Good for you, Charles. Just a little info about myself. I am of Native American and German heritage, precisely Cherokee and Choctaw, with a small amount of Irish, Scottish, and Bohemian thrown into the mix. I always had a love for the outdoors, whether it be camping, hunting, fishing, or hiking. I excelled in the Boy Scouts of America, football, baseball, and track. I worked as a well service operator in the Texas oil field for 25 years, and then I went to work for the United States Postal Service, where I retired in 2017 after 23 years of service. And so it begins. The day that I reached the point of no return and found out that there were giant creatures out in the forest known as Bigfoot. My encounter happened in 1974. I was 21 years old. For 48 years, I had kept this encounter to myself, and I'm still dealing with some PTSD. This is my encounter. I needed some vacation time away from my oil field job, so I planned a vacation to Beavers Bend State Park in southeastern Oklahoma. During the first week of March in 1974, my wife, who was 6 months pregnant at the time, and I had planned to tent camp on the Mountain Fork River below the dam of Broken Bow Lake for 4 days. I rented the farthest south tent site, which was about 40 yards from a cement dam on the river. This made the upper portion of the river deeper for better swimming, kayaking, and fishing. We had just beautiful weather with lows in the low to mid 50s and highs of 65 to 70 degrees. The first 2 days were simply terrific. We had fresh fish for dinner, breakfast and dinner both days. Now, on the morning of the third day, I got up at 5 a.m., made a pot of coffee, and had 2 cups of coffee. Then I grabbed my tackle box, rod and reel, and a 5-gallon bucket to put my catch in. I walked down to the cement dam where I had fished the previous 2 days. This morning there was about an 8-mile-an-hour breeze blowing in my face from the southeast. The sun was just starting to rise when I made my first cast using an inline single spinner 1-ounce lure called a shyster, with a white body and black dots and a white horsehair skirt over a barbed treble hook. After fishing for about 25 minutes, I had a 3-pound smallmouth bass and a 2 rainbow trout of 2 pounds each in my bucket. I had planned on catching one more fish and then call it quits. As I made my next cast, the lure hung up behind me on what I fully expected to be a tree limb. But when I turned, looking up to see where my lure had caught the limb, all I could see was a wall of cinnamon brown hair, about 5 feet from me. My lure had hung up in the upper left chest of something that I didn't know existed. My head was about 4 to 5 inches below its belly button, and I'm 6 feet tall. This, what the hell ever it is, was definitely male. It stood all of 12 feet tall, 6 feet wide across the shoulders, and somewhere between 12 to 1,300 pounds. And its biceps were as big as my 36-inch waist. My eyes slowly moved up to its face. It had a conical-shaped head. The eyes were as big as a Coke can and red. It was looking down at me and snarling. Its teeth were twice as big as a horse's teeth and had only slightly pronounced eye teeth. His head looked to be 1.5 times the size of a 5-gallon bucket. He had a protruding brow ridge, a hooded nose, and his skin was a very dark, leathery brown and slightly wrinkled face. I could not move. I could hear and feel a very low growl that seemed to rattle all the bones in my body. And there was a pressure all over my body that I can't explain. Darren, it was at this moment I truly believed that my life was over. I could not speak, scream, or holler, but I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm so sorry for hurting you. Then, like turning off a light switch, everything went black. I passed out. I believe that was at about 6:30 a.m. When I woke up, my watch read 7 a.m. I felt as though all my energy had been drained from me, and I had an excruciating headache. I sat up shaking uncontrollably and sweating heavily. As I looked around, I saw that my tackle box had been smashed flat. My rod was broken into 4 pieces, and the 3 fish I had caught were taken out of the 5-gallon bucket. After regaining some of my composure, I saw 2 footprints where the damn thing had been standing. I remember having a measuring tape, so I measured both prints. They were 22.5 inches long, 10 inches across the ball of the foot, and 7 inches across the heel. Darren, I had never seen footprints so huge. I was still shaking uncontrollably, and I had to just get the hell away from there. So I picked up all of my crushed, broken fishing equipment and carried it to a trash bin where I disposed of it. I walked back to my camp, sat down and poured myself a cup of coffee and waited for my wife to get up. When she exited the tent, I poured her a cup of coffee and she asked, "How was the fishing this morning, honey?" Well, I explained to her that during the night, someone had came into camp and had stolen all of my fishing gear. Darren, she was pissed, but that was a lot better than me trying to explain to her what I had actually seen and what had transpired down at the river. At this point, I was still feeling very lucky to be breathing and alive. I had one more cup of coffee, then I told my wife that I wasn't feeling well at all and that I was just ready to go home. You know, I can't help but believe that damn creature had been watching me catch fish and just wanted my fish. To this day, I still can't believe how that SOB snuck up behind me without my knowing it. Since that day, I gave away my fishing gear and stopped frequenting the forest areas. And only within the last couple of years, I have had an interest in finding out more about what it was that took my love of the outdoors. You know, back then I didn't know anything about PTSD, but I'm pretty sure that's what I was experiencing. Then came the night terrors. At least once and sometimes twice a night, my screaming, kicking, and punching would wake everyone and everything in the house. That creature would be creeping up on me from behind while in a spider crawl position. And just then I would turn and see him. At that point, he bounced to his feet, grabbed me by the shoulders, and picked me up to where we were looking eye to eye. He was snarling, and then he started to open that huge mouth. At that point, I would wake up and be covered in sweat and hyperventilating. I had these night terrors every night or every other night for about a year. Since then, they've become somewhat more sporadic for the next 49 years. Now, they seem to only happen about once a month. Thank God. I thank you for listening to my story. Take care. Charles. Wow. Charles, holy shit. That is something else, man. Wow. You know, I'm kind of at a loss for words, okay, and the reason being is because I read something like that and I put myself there, and I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine like turning around like that and one of these things being right there. Like, no wonder it ruined your love of the outdoors, man. You know, and for not telling your wife, yeah, there's, you know, people go, oh, you should be telling your best friend. If your wife's your best friend, you should be telling her everything or whatever. Like, you know what? There's some things that just out of whatever, you just go, I'm not going to say nothing. And, you know, Charles never spoke of that for like 48 years or something. Unbelievable. You know, the PTSD thing. I hear you, brother. Okay, I know what that's like. I've suffered that myself, and again, that's why I kind of take a pause when I read that or after I read that, because I experienced that when I was charged by the grizzly bear, and almost lost my life. And I got home, and for months and months, I would have horrible nightmares. Wake up in the middle of the night just swinging my arms, and my wife would have to wake me up, and you know, wake up in the sweating and just reliving that experience. And I'm telling you, if you haven't suffered PTSD, it's freaking real. It's horrible. It's as bad as the experience in itself, because you just keep reliving it. And I'll never forget one time, a couple of days or whatever after I got home from that trip that I almost died. My youngest daughter was little, and she was going from her bedroom. She used to come through our bedroom to use the bathroom, and she was coming through to use the bathroom, and I must have heard her. I used to be I still am a fairly light sleeper, and I heard her, and I jumped out of bed and kind of went at her. And it was just, I must have been dreaming about the bear again. So PTSD is real. It's a horrible thing to have to suffer and go through. And I don't know too much about it. I just dealt with it for probably, I don't know, I probably dealt with it for a couple of years before it kind of went away. But yeah, it's real. Unbelievable, Charles. Unbelievable. I hope you're over it, man. I'm kind of hoping that you get back out into the woods. If you see this, I'm going to reach out to you, actually. I'm going to email you back, but I'm hoping that you're able to get back out into the woods and enjoy doing what you do. That's just awful. And, you know, it's one thing, I think, to see one of these creatures, beings, whatever you want to call them. Okay, it's one thing to see one from a distance or a flash of one or whatever, but to see one, my mind's playing tricks on me, to see one so up close and personal like that, holy shit, unbelievable. Anyways, wild. I'm gonna hammer out one more. I hope this isn't too long. If it's too long, I'll edit it out, but I'm gonna try to read out one more here. Okay, so this one is from Rachel. Hello, Darren. I've wanted to share my encounter for some time now, and with the UK currently experiencing more and more lack of freedom of speech, it has somewhat become a priority. Alongside Steve, thank you for giving an open channel for people to share their Sabe experiences. I appreciate your main focus is the wilderness and hunting, both of which I am passionate about too, but your help in doing this is wonderful. By the way, please continue to share your forest walks. I love them. I always will, Rachel. My encounter happened 23 years ago, 2001 in Alaska, when I lived there. Not an excuse, but being an English girl, I hadn't heard of Sabe at the time. The Yeti was about the limit of my knowledge then, as my dad had seen large, man-like footprints when he went on a walking holiday in Nepal. I should also mention that growing up, my mom had told my sister and I about her close UFO experience. I had no reason to disbelieve either of my parents, but their experiences gave me an open mind and an inquisitive one too. My rabbit holes have been ventured into over the years regarding Sabe, and I hope one day the truth will be revealed to the world. My underlying question is, why are we not told? Everyone who tells about their experiences has been through something that we should be told about. With the help of Steve, I've been following him for 7 years now on YouTube, the puzzle pieces are starting to come together. But as you know, an experiencer starts with about 100 jigsaw pieces, and it easily becomes a 1,000-piece jigsaw. Every encounter shared seems to have more questions yet to be answered. Anyway, here's my experience. I must apologize for not being very descriptive, so please get back to me if you have any questions. My ex-partner's family owned a hunting cabin about an hour's drive north of Anchorage. We decided to stay there for a week so we could have some time out from the real world. It was February, very cold with short daylight hours. To get to the cabin, we had to leave the car and travel by skidoo for several miles, including across a frozen lake. The cabin was very isolated. The first few days were amazing. We were totally relaxed and enjoying all the great outdoors could offer, hunting and star watching. For this English girl, it was an experience of a lifetime, just incredible. Then one evening, everything changed. I was woken by a scratching noise outside the bedroom window. I initially ignored it, thinking it was a little critter digging for something. Remember, I'm English and naive to what was out there. But the scratching continued, and I started to get curious because it was preventing me from going back to sleep. My ex remained asleep despite it being fairly loud. So I got out of bed, walked across the room, and gently pulled back the curtain. The fire glow in the room was just enough for me to see a large face staring back at me. My first thought was, why is there a man outside in this cold? Why hasn't he knocked on the door? Then this man started to tap on the window with his finger. I realized then what the scratching was. Then he smiled. Yes, he smiled at me. And then he just disappeared. There are no other words to describe it, Darren. He disappeared. He didn't walk away, he simply vanished. To me, his face was like a Neanderthal. I don't remember exact details, but it was all over in a matter of 5 seconds. His face was huge, his skin dark. His eyes were fixed onto me and looked very human. I could see whites. He didn't seem surprised to see me either. And this all happened 2 feet apart. I didn't feel scared, just shocked. I didn't tell my ex because at the time I thought he'd think I was delusional. Maybe I should have. He might have told me something. Additionally, being in Alaska, the cabin was on stilts, so the height of the top of the window was roughly 10 feet off the ground. So he must have been at least 8 foot tall. Darren, I never told a soul who would believe me, so I kept it quiet for over 20 years. My thought on Sabe from my encounter and from hearing so many experiences from others: if they disappear, they are actually still there. Even when they vanish, I now believe he just cloaked. I also think there is something about their eyes. In this part of him, it's this part of him I've never forgotten. His eyes had a soul, an intelligence to them. Thank you for listening, Darren. We will get to the truth about Sabe. I can feel it is getting closer. Keep safe, my friend. Enjoy your upcoming hunts this fall. Kindest regards, Rachel. Wow. 2. What a coincidence. 2 very up close and personal experiences. Yeah, I wouldn't say we don't have proof on much of these beings, okay? So I wouldn't say that there's proof on anything, but there's, I think there's a lot of testimony and encounters where these things just vanish. They're there 1 minute and gone the next. So what that is, I don't know. You know what, you guys, I am not a friggin' researcher. I am an outdoors hunter, hiker, fisherman that believes in Sasquatch. And I know that I've had some pretty crazy encounters myself. But I'm not a researcher. I don't know. I don't think anybody does know. If they vanish like that, how they do it or whatever, who knows? I think a lot of that is just a mystery. We just don't know. So anyways, Rachel, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And you're right, we will get to the bottom of it. I think over time, it just takes time, right? Just like the whole UFO thing, right? Took forever for the powers to be to finally say, okay, yeah, there is such thing as UFOs, and our military has pictures of them. So here they are, right? It's going to be the same type of thing. I think there's a lot more to it than just, why is it being held from us? Why is it being hidden from us? And why has it been our entire lives? I think because these beings could unlock a lot of questions. They could unlock a lot of questions, right? They could unlock a lot of maybe powers or things that we just are not ready to know or accept or whatever. So there's nothing better than hiking out into the middle of the frickin' forest and reading scary stories. I don't get scared anymore. People are like, oh, you're crazy for hiking out there. I didn't bring my shotgun today, my Defender. I got my bear spray, but I didn't bring the Defender. But people are like, you're crazy for doing that. You know what? I just don't give a shit. Like, if I've said it before and I'll say it again, is if this is where I'm going to go, this is where I'm going to go, and no better place to go. All right, we made her to the top, and we're going to head down the other side here. That tree got ran over by something. Something broke that right off of the base. Yeah, so I'm telling you guys, look at this, eh? frickin' big trees. This one here's laying down, that one's laying down. Okay. I admit, that is a little odd. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. Anyways, time to move on. I haven't been down this side of the valley ever. I actually haven't been to the top of this mountain yet. I've only been about halfway up that creek bed that I was in, and never gone any further. So this is all new to me, just like it is to you. Pretty good game trail here though that I'm on. There's a ton of elk. Usually a ton of elk in this area. And as I said before, they're limited entry. Not everybody can go and shoot them. You have to get a draw, and that's like winning the Powerball lottery, getting a draw for these elk. So, but they're still spooky. They're still skittish. Look at this stump torn apart. I'd say there's a big bear in here looking for food. Huh. After I just say, oh yeah, I don't have my Defender, I just got my bear spray. Whatever. Oh, there's a nice game trail. God, it's quiet up here. Holy. Good game trail here. So we will follow the game trail here for a bit. All right.